Hi, Dr. Herman again, and we had a question about fasting, whether I thought that was beneficial, and also about what dirty fasting is. And so we're going to talk a little bit about fasting today. So with fasting, you really have to think, what is your goal? Why are you fasting? What are your goals when you're doing this? And one would be to lose weight. Another would be to improve your blood sugar. Fasting really does improve blood sugar quite a bit. Increase your health. And then fasting, I think this is the biggest advantage to fasting. And fasting will change your relationship with food. You know, nowadays, you have it there all the time. So you wake up in the morning, I got to eat. You know, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. Oh, trying to get a snack. Noon, well, it's noon, I got to go eat. You know, maybe you don't eat until dinner, then you eat dinner, and then, well, it's time for bedtime. I better grab a snack. We're constantly eating. And, you know, a lot of times people think that when they start to fast, you know, well, we'll tell them, you know, I'd like for you to start skipping breakfast in the morning. And they're like, skip breakfast? I will die. I will absolutely die. There's no way that I can just go without breakfast. Well, of course, that's not true. You're not going to die, and it's not nearly as hard as what you think it is. And we have ways and little tricks that you can work through this. It's not suffering. People think fasting is suffering. It is not suffering. If you should be comfortable while you're fasting. Yes, it does require willpower, but it's not suffering. Okay, so what happens when you eat? What's the process? What happens physiologically when you eat? When you eat, of course, your cells are burning carbs or burning sugar. And when you eat sugar, then your body increases insulin. Insulin helps sugar to get inside the cell. So when you eat carbs or eat sugar, then you have an increase in insulin. Okay, and insulin, another of its jobs is to tell your body to store energy or store those carbs in and store fat. Okay, so when you eat, you're constantly getting that insulin hit of store fat. So in today's society, we're eating so often that you're constantly saying store fat, store fat, store fat. And then you wonder, why am I so fat? It's because you're constantly telling your body to store fat. And of course, fasting will change this, and it will change your relationship with food. Okay, so what happens when you fast or you stop eating? When your body needs sugar or carbs for energy, what happens is it gets it, of course, through the food that you eat. Well, what if there's no food there? Then your body will take it from your liver, and it's going to take it from glycogen stores in your liver. When you eat and you don't use all that energy, your body will store some of that sugar energy and glycogen in your liver. So when you don't eat, it's going to start to change that glycogen to sugar, and then it's going to use that for energy. What happens when the liver runs out of glycogen stores? Well, then you start to burn fat. And that's going to be 24 hours in, approximately. Now this varies. It's not like all of a sudden it does. You're going to be burning fat before then, and we have ways that you can increase that and make that a little bit shorter. Okay, so your body will start to burn fat. This process in a lot of people of your body metabolizing fat for energy, it just doesn't work very well because you never do it. You never use that. And so when you start to burn fat, your body's like, whoa, what the heck's going on? You know, we don't use this pathway very often, but we want your body to become efficient at burning fat. We want it to be able to kick over into that mode very easily and not be a problem. And that's an advantage with fasting, is it increases your body's ability to burn fat efficiently. Okay, so when you burn fat, what happens are that one of the byproducts of fat metabolism when you're burning it are called ketones. And this is where the ketogenic diet got its start, was from people fasting, and they used it for a long time ago, back in the 1920s. They used it for treating patients with epilepsy because ketones can be burned by the brain for fuel. And it's actually very good for the brain to burn ketones for fuel. Metabolically, you could make an argument that ketones are better to burn for fuel in the brain than sugar is. So ketones have a very calming effect and a very concentrative effect. You think much more clearly when you're burning ketones. And it can be an amazing diet for people with mood disorders, epilepsy, any kind of psychological problem. Ketones and ketosis can help with that quite a bit. Okay, so you'll start burning ketones. You'll have, believe it or not, increased energy because fasting increases cortisol and it increases growth hormone also. So one of the other big things that fasting does is it increases what's called autophagy. And your body is always building things up or tearing things down, one or the other. Autophagy is tearing things down. So autophagy is what happens when you fast, and it will give your body a break so that it can start doing repair work. And it can't really do that on a very efficient basis until you stop eating food and go into a fasting state. Then autophagy starts to kick in. And one way I think that's good to look at this is, let's say that your kitchen needs an overhaul. You know, you need new cabinets, you need a new refrigerator, a new stove. But you can't do it because you're constantly eating food in there. You need your kitchen. You have to use it all the time. Well, if you stopped eating, then you could have the construction crews come in and start tearing those things down and getting that out of there, because you can't put a new stove in there when the old stove is being used constantly. Okay, and that's kind of how autophagy works. Autophagy it will start to tear down and start to rebuild things that need to be rebuilt and get rid of tissue that needs to be gotten rid of when you're in a fasting state. So autophagy happens. Sometimes online, when you're reading about fasting, there's this argument that, well, if you start fasting, you're going to introduce eating disorders like anorexia. And I totally disagree with that. I imagine that there are cases of that, but let's face it, the problem with today's society is not that we're eating too little, it's that we're eating way too much. And anorexia is a psychological disorder. It's not, there's a problem with psychology. And you're not going to put somebody that weighs 90 pounds on a fast. That would be ridiculous. Okay, so we have to use a little bit of common sense here, I think, too. So if you lean towards eating disorders, maybe fasting isn't right for you. But just to say that people shouldn't fast because they possibly might introduce an eating disorder, I think is really, I don't know, makes no sense to me. Okay, and then what is dirty fasting? Dirty fasting is, I don't want to say cheating, but it's an easier way to do fasting. So let's say that we have you start fasting. And usually the easiest way to do that is what we call 18-6. 18-6 is going 18 hours of the day before you eat again, and then only eating during that 6-hour window. It's a very easy thing to do because all you're going to do is skip breakfast, okay? You're going to finish your dinner around 7 o'clock. No eating after 7 o'clock, maybe 6 o'clock if you can. And then you're not going to eat all the way around until noon again. So you're skipping breakfast. And I know what you're thinking. I will die, but that's not the case. You'll get a little bit hungry in the morning, and then it goes away in 10 minutes. And then it might come back in another hour or two, and then you drink some water and it goes away. And so you'll find that it's not all that hard. But let's say you only make it to 10 o'clock. Then the next day or the following day, you try it again. and maybe you make it until 10:30 or 11, and you just try to keep doing it as best you can. You'll get used to having a little bit of hunger, and it actually feels good. You don't feel all bloated and all. So then one day you're going along, and all of a sudden you're like, you know what? It's noon, and I'm really not hungry. I don't feel too bad. Maybe you make it till 2 o'clock, and you just gradually go. But one way to help the process along, let's say you get to 10 o'clock and you're like, I'm starving, I can't do it, I got to give in. Just have a handful, this is just an example, a handful of macadamia nuts, which are really about 75% fat. There's a lot of fat in macadamia nuts. And then you're not officially fasting anymore. You cheated a little bit. I don't want to call it cheating because it's not really cheating. It's a strategy, okay? And the strategy is give yourself a little bit of fat. That's what you're trying to do anyway, is to burn fat. You're still keeping the carbs down, and so you can get all these benefits, but you can make it then until noon. And so there are other things that we can give you to reduce hunger too, that are fairly easy to do, and you should not try doing this on a day when you have to have a meeting with with your board of directors or whatever. So try to do it on a day when you don't have much going on, but stay busy during that time. Make sure you are doing something so that you can kind of keep your mind off of that you're not eating. Okay, so if you have any questions about this video, or that, be sure and type them in there. Be sure, if you like this video, to like it. That helps us. And we'll see you next time.